Hey, thanks for joining me. This is kind of a part two of another video I've started with regards to Cloudways. And like I was saying in the other video, I've kind of bitten the bullet. So just in case you're not kind of watching both videos, I will link to the other one down below. But I used to be hosting my websites on HostGator. I actually still am. I'm just kind of moving things over to Cloudways, but I've been super impressed. I've just been testing it, and I'm doing some paid advertising, and I was feeling like there was a pretty big gap between the number of clicks I was getting in my tracking software, my click tracking software. There's a gap between how many clicks I was getting through on ads and how many visits I was getting on my website. And generally speaking, that can happen for a few reasons, but when there's a pretty decent gap between those clicks and those landing page views, then sometimes what's happening is your website or your page that you're sending people to isn't loading fast enough. And when that happens, people have clicked an ad, they're waiting for your site to come up, and then, they decide not to wait, and then they go do something else. And so then you've had to pay for the click, but then you haven't even shown them anything. So that's a bad thing. And I've known for a long time that HostGator's been kind of a problem. And so, I've got some client sites on there and other stuff. And anytime I need things to be really fast, it's like I use HTML pages, right? And that's what I've been using for landing pages. But even then, when you're sending a lot of traffic, HostGator can get weird about the bandwidth. And so, if you're sending 500 clicks in an hour or more, then suddenly, even though your page loads really fast, it's like they're kind of throttling your bandwidth. And I don't know how all that stuff works and what all the recipes are in the background that, make that happen. But somebody mentioned Cloudways to me, and so I checked them out, and I've been testing them, and I've been super happy. I've really been impressed with how fast pages load. And what's even more fun is that if you're on whatever host and you've ever felt like, God, it takes forever for clicking around and moving around inside my WordPress dashboard like that, that took a long time, right, to load that up. And when you're doing a lot of work and you're clicking back and forth and you're waiting all the time like that, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And so that was one of my things I was most happy with Cloudways is, moving sites over there. I was like, man, navigating around the dashboard, everything is just like boom, because nothing's cached, right? None of your dashboard stuff, gets all that optimization and caching and all of the benefits that you're kind of putting on for the outside world. The dashboard is just kind of like, well, it's yours, you're going to suffer, and so when the dashboard works good, then you've kind of found a pretty decent hosting situation, right? And the thing I like about Cloudways is you don't really have to pay through the nose to get it, right? I mean, we're not talking about something that costs $50 or $100 a month. Cloudways just happens to be a lot cheaper, right? Here, let me just go to the pricing. If you haven't checked it out, I've got a link below to it, which is an affiliate link, which I appreciate if you... they've got a 3-day free trial, and the way they price is really cool. It's not like you have to get the best deal, you have to buy a 3-year plan or something like that, like with a lot of other hosts. With Cloudways, it's just all month to month, and you can trial it for 3 days for nothing, like without any sort of card or anything. If you decide to go with it, then you just enter your card details, but they're not actually going to bill you until the end of your period. So it's kind of like in arrears, and that's awesome, right? So the way it works, though, I mean, this pricing is amazing, right? So you can, if you feel like you need it, go with AWS or Google Cloud, which are kind of the more expensive options here. But of course, you're getting like those names, right? I'm using Vultr, right? And basically just choosing this plan to start with. What's really cool about Cloudways though is that, you're basically, they're the interface between you and these like internet cloud server providers, right? And so like if you've ever tried to set all this up on AWS, for instance, yourself, and go through the steps of setting up your server and getting it ready for WordPress, it's a real pain in the neck. And so this is like super easy. Like you just click a few things and then they do all the work for you of setting everything up. And the pricing is super good. So I recommend you check out like Vultr, DigitalOcean, Linode, whichever one of those, makes sense to you. And then you're kind of looking at how much RAM, a little info about the processor on your server, and how much storage you need. I'm kind of starting out here and just kind of add in a few sites to it. What's also great is that like once you get logged in here, you can see like I've set up one server with that sort of second tier. So I've got 55 gig of disk space, which is plenty for most of my websites. I can add several to this. Like you can add multiple sites to one server if you want. They're all going to be yours. The other thing you can do is like you can add multiple servers in here too. So like for instance, if you've got clients like I do, and you want to just sort of, you could just add their sites onto your own server and save money that way and just have one server bill, or you can add another server down here for another $11 a month or whatever plan you pick, and keep them separate that way. If you want. So it's super scalable that way, right? So either I can beef up the server I've got and, choose a higher plan, right? I could go, bump up to the 84 a month plan with this one server I've got. Hopefully I'm not losing you here. Or I could just add more servers. It's totally up to you. So it's kind of cool flexibility, I think. The one thing to point out is that there is so like if you've ever used cPanel and, somebody like HostGator, Bluehost, whatever, where you can sort of add unlimited email addresses, that doesn't work here, right? So just like if you were setting yourself up on AWS, for example, and kind of working through all of that yourself, it's the same way with Cloudways, right? I mean, they're the interface to these cloud server companies, but like these cloud server companies aren't email providers, right? So that part is, so what you can do through Cloudways is for $1 a month, set up email addresses. So, I'll have to set up a few for my business, so maybe I'll be paying an extra $3 or $4 a month. Alternatively, they show you how to use Google for free, like Google SMTP, or you can use like SendGrid or Mailgun also. So, and those give you lots of free emails as well. But I do recommend, check out their help documentation or just Google it, Cloudways email, and, just kind of read a little bit about it. The other thing to note is like, since I have a couple of customers, it's like, am I going to blow up their email addresses and all that stuff? And the answer is no. Like, generally if I'm doing this stuff for a customer, then like a client business, small business, I always recommend to them, go and set up your own mail server, right? Use Outlook, use Google Suite, whatever you want to use, but like, I never wanted to be the mail provider. I did that for one company and it was kind of a pain in the butt. So yeah, you don't want to get stuck with that. I'd recommend just kind of offload that to the customer, have them find an email specialist and take care of all of that. So, it's no big deal for me that they don't have email, but anyway, enough about that, right? Let's get in here and kind of mess around. So we've got a server. And then the way the concept works in Cloudways is you've got a server, then you can add apps to it, applications, right? And an example of an application is WordPress, right? So if I click applications here, I can see that I already set up one app for one of my websites. And so all you have to do is just click to add an app, pick your server. I've only got the one in this case. Okay. And now it's going to say, what do you want to do? Do you want to do a PHP, a Magento, Drupal, OpenCart? You've got all these built-in options, kind of, what you're familiar with on a lot of hosts. Just pick your WordPress, name it, right? So I just name it with my website, but you can name it however you want. And then you just click add, right? And then it's there. And then what'll happen, every one that you add to this server, every site, is going to show up here as a www. Okay, so when you click that, then you'll see a drop down with all your sites. Now, if I go to my one site here, I can see a few pieces of info, like I've added application credentials, just a username and password. Add that, then basically that allows you to log in via FTP to your site. There is no cPanel in Cloudways, so this is it right here. All you have to do to migrate a site from your existing host over to Cloudways is just install the Cloudways Migrate plugin, right? So if I go in here to plugins, and one thing I would recommend, like if you're going to migrate a site, just go through, clean everything up, right? Like I went through here, deleted some plugins that I'm not using anymore, updated everything so it's all up to date. I removed a couple of plugins that I know don't work. Because what'll happen is basically like if there's a plugin that has a conflict or that hasn't been updated in a long time or that kind of thing, WordPress has made a lot of changes, and a lot of that stuff is going to be enforced on your new host on Cloudways. And so like if there's a conflict, basically it'll like fail the migration. So, you may run into that. That's why I recommend like sign up for Cloudways. And it's so cool because, since they're not going to be billing you right away anyway, you can sign up for Cloudways and then basically keep your existing hosting, get everything migrated. And then once everything is successful, once you can go here, like once you've added WordPress, yeah, see, there's a critical error last time I tried to migrate it, and that was due to this plugin right here, WP Spam Shield. So I got an email about it from my site. So it just told me, WordPress now sends you debug emails after, so that's why you want to be sure you're upgraded to the latest WordPress version as well as upgrading all your plugins. It'll actually tell you what caused the failure. So all you have to do is basically just come back in here, deactivate it, right? Deactivate that plugin that caused a problem. Start the migration again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill out my migration details. So if I just go in here to settings, sorry, I hope this isn't too boring. I don't want to, I'm just trying to talk you through all the things that I'm experiencing as I go through it. And, basically I'm just going to fill this out really quick and then I'll come right back. We'll see the migration start and then I'll pause it, till that finishes. It takes a few minutes, depending on the size of your site. And then once it's successful, then I'll come back and we'll check it out. Okay. So, before I go, I should point out, I did run on GTmetrix a performance test real quick so that we can kind of do a before and after, looking at here's what it is on HostGator, and then we can look at how it looks on the new host on Cloudways. Okay, so leverage browser caching. I don't really do that right now. So on this site, some of these things, are site specific, so they won't change. They won't matter with the host, but we'll see. We'll compare the load times. That's the thing I most care about, and go from there. So, all right, I'll see you in a minute. So just for the sake of making sure you've got what you need, I just want to show you really quick kind of what this page looks like when you fill it all out. So server public IP address, I'm just finding that right here. on Cloudways. So really all we're doing is just kind of setting up, it's almost like setting up an FTP login from your, inside your blog dashboard, inside your WordPress dashboard, to connect to Cloudways, to your new server. Okay, so you're just telling it what your site is, what the database name is, so that it knows where to put all the tables and content and stuff, and then your login credentials, right? And then all you have to do is click migrate, and that'll start. So it takes a couple of minutes. So I'll be back, but I'll just show you. I mean, you know, the first step here is just going to be validating the login credentials. It'll tell you if it's going to, if that fails, then you've just got to make sure you've got your SFTP username and password right, and the IP address right. So okay, yeah, there we go. Looks like it's going to go, so I'll come back when this finishes. Okay, that finished, and then you get this screen. If you click this button, it's just going to open your existing site, which for me right now is still pointing to HostGator, right? So instead what I want to do is go into Cloudways and go to my application URL, and let's see if it worked this time. Ooh, it did. All right. So this is kind of my staging area kind of thing for, and all I have to do now is go into Cloudflare, which is where I manage all of my sites, and basically just change my records to point to the new IP address, the new host, right? So I use Cloudflare. You know, you could also do this from your domain host, right? So if you use Namecheap or whoever you use for your domain names, you can basically point to, it's just change your name servers in there so that they point to this IP address here, right, for your website in Cloudways, instead of, you know, whatever address they had in there before. Right, so you can always use either a name or a IP address. In this case, with Cloudways, you just get an IP, so, and you just get one. So that's good enough. That's all you need. So you just want to change it in Cloudflare and everything. You know, the first thing though is of course you want to like log in, just kind of make sure, click around, make sure it's all good. Let's just I'm going to just copy this address and go over here to GTmetrix. And we'll test it out. We'll see if it's any faster. I apologize, this video has dragged on a little bit. So I've still got work to do, right? These are all site-related things like I pointed out earlier. These don't really relate to your host. But you can see I've shaved over half a second off of the load time just by moving the host, right? And so that's a big difference, because again, it may, you know, a good caching plugin can shave half a second off the site. And you know, I've got some unoptimized images and stuff like that in here, and you know, there's problems, but I just wanted to use a site that I hadn't really ever worked on or optimized, and just, you know, be able to show the raw difference in the hosting. So that is Cloudways, and that's what it looks like, and so far so good. So hey, listen, like I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of links down below. You can check out more about Cloudways on my blog, Your Internet Lifestyle. I'll also link up the other Cloudways videos that I've created down below, and you can kind of check those out too. So thanks a lot for joining me. I totally appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.